Hello, everybody. My name's James, and for the benefit of those listening on the audio, you're listening to the final Ask James live stream of the 2021-22 season, where I welcome questions from the YouTube community on anything football related. And with the FPL season finished, I have literally no idea what's in store for me. We'll probably keep this one down to around about 45 minutes or so, I think. I'm not expecting as many people in the chat as usual, but please pop your questions in. If you're joining in, feel free to ask me absolutely anything you like today. Let's try and have a laugh over the next 45 minutes or so. Let's see who's first. Damien Rosowski says, what prices should Trent, Cancelo, James be at next season? Damien, you wasted an opportunity and you started with an FPL question. Blooming heck. What price should they be next season, or what price will they be? Should be, I think Trent about 9 million, Cancelo and about 8 million, Reece James about 7.5. They won't be that. I think Trent will be 8-ish again. Would he start at 8? Might be 8.5 possibly, but I think every chance to be 8 again. Cancelo I think will go up to 7.5-ish. And I think Reece James will probably get a little bit of injury tax on him. We'll probably be about 6.5. I think that would be my guess. Ola Stamos says, hello once again, James. Thanks for content and for help around FPL information. It's definitely helped me achieve 1.2k rank on the end. Congratulations, my friend, on an absolutely brilliant season despite being trolled massively by Burnley's Connor Roberts. Damien says, which team would you want in FPL next season? Nottingham Forest or Huddersfield? I have no preference either way, to tell you the truth. Either little slight preference for Nottingham Forest in the sense that I haven't been to the City Ground. I still think of Huddersfield as the McAlpine Stadium. From an FPL perspective, no preference. I think both teams would do some interesting business in the market this summer should they get promoted anyway. I think as it stands, it'd possibly be a little bit more interesting Fulham Forest assets should they both come up with the same squad. But I was talking on our Patron pod this morning about Jed Spence versus Toffolo on the wing tomorrow. The right wing back versus the left wing back is an interesting one. Those are two players certainly to watch out for in that game on Sunday. If they play in the Prem next year on a 4.5, there'll be serious interest in those two players come pre-season, I should imagine. But no preference. At the end of the day, people like me mention people like Spence and to follow. There's every chance he'll come in at 5, and then there's not a lot of interest necessarily in what the rest of the squad has to offer from, say, a defensive proposition. So thinking about FPL and which team would rather get promoted, I've no preference at all, mate. Philip Sukta says, hi James, thanks for the great content all season. What would be your dream but realistic free signings for Spurs? It's difficult to quite know what realistic is with this injection of money, and are Tottenham going to go and buy 2 or 3 big players, or are they going to spread that out? We think Conte wants Bastoni from Inter Milan to play left-sided centre-back, so if that's who he wants, that's top priority. I think wing-backs are really important. I mentioned Jed Spence. I'd be more than happy to take Jed Spence next year to compete with, say, Doherty, for example. It'd be fine. I actually personally would really like to get hold of Ivan Perisic for a year as available on a free transfer of 2 years. With Conte in charge, we think short term. Yes, he's getting on 34 or so. I've been a big fan of him for a long time, Perisic. So I think that's certainly a realistic type. Looks like it's probably going to make a choice, I think, between us and Chelsea, I think. And it'll probably come down to money. And I imagine Chelsea will probably offer more. So there's a few players for you. Midfield, we certainly need something. We need a backup forward for Kane, which I've long been of the opinion that we probably don't. We need to find the next Heung-min Son rather than the next Harry Kane. So Sonny can play up front if Harry's absent, but it does appear that Conte really wants a forward, and that's really hard to find a good one who's going to know that they're second choice, and that really difficult. Asil Salem says, hi James, who are the top 3 favourites to win the World Cup this year? I think Brazil are favourites with the bookies at the moment, I want to say. Brazil and France. And there's probably, to be honest, because of weight and money here, it's probably then England. Spain will be in the running, obviously Germany in the running. Portugal got a very good team at the moment. Belgium, I think, might have missed their best moment. Argentina look like might be trying to kind of build again. So, they're your front runners. But I would have thought top 3 in the betting is probably Brazil, France and and England. Bets1604 says, hi James, what is your all-time favourite goal scored that you like to rewatch from a non-Spurs point of view? Mine would be the Wilshere goal versus Norwich. It's definitely not that. Favourite goal from a non-Spurs perspective. Can I name an England goal? Messi, the Ankara Messi. It's got to be, isn't it? It's the theme music, so I've got to say that, haven't I? I think. Rivaldo's hat-trick for Barca against Valencia. I mean, there's so many Messi goals, definitely. Yeah, let's go with them. John Cahill says, afternoon, James, mate. Thanks for all the great content, as always. Does the 5-sub rule make you more or less likely to get involved with Pep Roulette next season? Well, with Pep, it possibly doesn't make a difference, does it? Because sometimes it doesn't make any changes at all. So, I think there's a danger of overplaying this. I think we're more likely to see... I was looking at Mo Salah's minutes actually at the start of the season. I think he played 90 minutes in sort of like 13 of the first 14 games. And that's probably just with the 5 subs more likely to be a few more sort of 80s and 85s. I don't think it's going to make a huge amount of difference, to be very honest. Yes, rotation risks become further rotation risks, but that doesn't go away. Whether Man City have got 3 subs or 5 subs available, I don't think it makes a difference. City assets will be all down to pricing, right? So if Phil Foden's coming in at a similar price next season, then he's of interest again. There's every chance he'll get a price hike. Maybe Jack Grealish, year 2, I talk about it a lot. Maybe Jack Grealish will have a decrease in price and suddenly become quite interesting, for example. So all very dependent on pricing and stuff. If the City games are too high a price for the rotation, I'd just rather not get involved. My take on City generally is they spread the goals about so much that it's always very difficult to catch the right one at the right time. And a player like Sterling, because of his explosiveness, you're always going to have to pay a premium for. But he's not justifiable on a regular because you could get hat-trick one week and not be in the team the next, right? Which means you have to hop on and off at the right times. So price dependent. But no, I think we can overplay the 3-5 sub thing. I don't think it's going to make a huge amount of difference. Take Tottenham as an example on Sunday, right? Only had basically 3 senior players on the bench. That's the 3 he used. Maybe in that circumstance, if he'd had 5, maybe he would have brought a couple of kids on towards the end of the game, Conte. But I think in most big games, he wouldn't. He wouldn't. So depth of squad's important. It's obviously going to impact those who are playing in Europe a little bit more, but then maybe not, because then some of these backup players are going to get their minutes in the early rounds of cup competitions, particularly the non-Champions League teams. So I think there's a danger in overplaying the 5 subs and thinking about it too much. John K. The other thing to say about that, of course, is if you have a big name attacking player who's benched, they're more likely to get on, aren't they? So there is perhaps a knock-on where perhaps you don't need quite the amount of money on the bench you'd normally need, possibly. Asil Salem says, do you think Spurs can do better next season, finishing the top 3? Yes. Yes, I do, actually. That's not to say that we will, or that I think that we will, but can we? Yeah, absolutely. I think Chelsea's a little bit of an unknown at the moment in terms of what they're going to do in the market. Obviously the deal's going to go for Todd Boehly's consortium's going to go through absolutely fine, and the reports seem to suggest they will spend money, but clearly they do, certainly to try and catch on to City and Liverpool, they've got to spend a lot this summer. Obviously you've got the integration of potentially people like Gallagher and Breuer if they decide to keep. Do they cash in on Lukaku? They really need reinforcement in defensive and midfield areas. Arguably better wing-back options as well. They've got a few obviously are out of contract, like Antonio Rudiger are leaving. So I think there's a little bit of an unknown about Chelsea at the moment. I think I said on our Patron Tottenham podcast in a week that if Conte was still our manager, the only way I could foresee Tottenham not finishing top 4 next year is if we went really deep in cup competitions and it became a serious distraction. Otherwise, I just think he's at top level. We can see 5 goals in the last 11 league games. Like, staggeringly good, really. Consider, players here who going back 6 months, people like Dyer and Davis, people didn't want around the team and stuff. He's got the tune out of them. He's a top level manager, so if he gets better players, I think it's right to be expecting of doing something better. As I've already said, there's a lot of short-termism about Tottenham at the moment. But yes, to be honest, if you said to me now, someone is going to challenge City and Liverpool for the title next season, at this minute, I'd say we were the most likely. That's not to say I think that will happen, because I don't. But I feel like at this moment we would arguably be more likely than Chelsea if there was to be a sustained title push. But again, it really depends what Chelsea do in the market, and we know they can go pretty big. But yeah, can we finish third next year, for example? Yeah, absolutely. Darren Malloy says, if Kane had went to City at start of the season and Conte still came in when he did, do you still think he would have been able to achieve fourth? Yes, is the answer. I don't think, Darren, we can quite equate what that looks like, because obviously if Kane had gone, Spurs buy someone else, right? Tottenham don't just leave it and go, we're playing Dane Scarlett up front every week. So it depends what that forward player would have been. I suspect if Kane had gone, Tottenham would have pushed really hard for Lautaro Martinez from Inter Milan, who's a player obviously Conte had worked with. So I'm inclined to say yes. At the end of the day, Son's goals have really been the top differential maker for us this year, hasn't it? So, and the way he's improved us defensively as a team, the structure of the team, the relationship with the two midfield players. Like Højbjerg's been outstanding the last 3 months alongside Rodrigo Bentancur. So I'd probably say yes, to be honest, Darren. Probably yes. I'll flip down its head and say, do you think Arsenal would have finished above Tottenham if they kept Aubameyang? I think the answer's probably still no, isn't it? Asil says, what do you think of Pau Torres? Do you think he's a good buy for Manchester United or Chelsea? Very talented player. Left-footed, which kind of comes at a premium because they're obviously rarer. I know, and I'm not an expert on him by any means, but I know there are some concerns from some that he may struggle with some of the physicality of the Premier League. But certainly a good enough footballer. I think he'd fit right in at Man City, for example. I'm not saying he's even good enough, but in terms of stylistically, I think he'd fit in there. But would he be a good signing for those two teams? I mean, my instinct is yes. It's just I've heard plenty of people suggest doubts that they're concerned that he might get roughed up a little bit. That's all. But he's a very good player. Wilson says, hi James, have you ever been to a Spurs game either home or away and not sat in the Spurs end? If so, what was it like? Yes. And this used to happen a lot more commonly back in the day. I'm trying to think of the most, if there's been one recently. I'm going to say recently, I mean this century. Certainly not happened recently. I remember sitting on the side at West Ham in 91-92 with my mum and dad. So I would have been, it was earlier in the season, so I would have been 7. And I remember being a little bit concerned about that, but it was plenty of Tottenham in there who shouted goal when we scored. Plenty. So it was quite mixed. It was different back in those days, obviously. Trying to think, not for a very long time. Certainly not going back to 90s. I feel like a few times at QPR, maybe I might have been in the mixed area. The away end at Fulham can get quite mixed anyway, but it's predominantly away fans. So not for a very, very long time. I know as Tottenham fans dotted around Norwich on Sunday, I wouldn't have wanted to do it particularly. And to be honest, this is the sort of game you'd probably get away with it. But it's not something I'd want to do. Good question. FPL Lighthouse says, how many years do you think the rebuild at Man United will take? And do you see United sticking with Ten Hag if there's no improvement this year? I find it difficult at this moment to envisage United finishing top 4 next year. I've spoken about this a lot. About I think the football club are a bastion, right? So naturally, at some point, they will get right back to the top. That's inevitable. But I think United fans need to be patient. They've stumbled from one mistake to another. To be totally honest, they've wasted a lot of time with managers and signings. I think there's something wrong with the core of the players at Manchester United, and I think his first year will be as important, Ten Hag, to get the players out the door that he doesn't want there as much as the players that he does want in. So what I expect next season is you'll probably find some inconsistencies with United. So I think like they'll probably have a couple of games in big games where they get a few good results, but I think you'll find there'll be inconsistencies with their results because there's a mentality issue. Clearly there has been. What did they lose the last 6 away games without scoring or something? Well, no, that's not true. They definitely scored at Arsenal. I think they lost the last 6 away games. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable for the team that finishes 20th, really. How can it be for Manchester United to lose 6 away games in a row? And take some hidings in there as well. Brighton, Liverpool, for example. We know you don't expect them to get anything at Liverpool, but it's unacceptable to lose 4-0 at Brighton. There's a lot of work to do there. He's a very good coach, Ten Hag. I think you'll probably get, and this is another reason why his first season will be really difficult, I think you'll get a real split amongst the group still, in terms of those who will follow him instantly and will be really good for him, and there'll be a split of others who will not like his methods. He's very strict in the way he does things. So I think it will take time. If Manchester United finish 6th and then 5th, for example, unless he's lost the dressing room completely and the players aren't responding to him, United should still stick with him, in my opinion. They had to make a long-term decision here, and that's what they've made. So I think they've got to give him time. There's no point. Like, if United are 9th in November, what's the point in sacking him? See it through. It has to get some time. There's too much wrong with that football club at the moment. And if it's given time, it will naturally be restored to where the size of the football club should be, which is challenging for titles. But it will take a long time. Liverpool fans of older generation will tell you, if you just said to a Liverpool fan in 1990 you're not going to win the league for 30 years, they would have thought you were on drugs. And I'm not to say that it's going to be another 20 years for Manchester United, but with City, Liverpool, the money of the London clubs, it's not getting easier. Newcastle, of course, coming on the scene now as well. Like, there's no divine right to be there. So United fans have got to have patience, which is not easy for United. John Cahill says, what's your rogue transfer of the summer? I think Zaha could move on, potentially Dortmund or the Toon. I think Newcastle are quite intelligently here, looking to target younger players than what they were potentially looking at in January. And I've spoken about this as a really smart strategic idea, because basically Newcastle, despite all the money they've got, obviously want to spend money, and they've got to still work within FFP. So the players that they want to buy, they also want to sell them. So what you buy Wilfried Zaha for now, you're not getting a resale of that in 3 years' time. So I think Newcastle would sound like they're going to act quite clever. Dortmund have already made 5 or 6 signings this summer. I can't profess to know a lot about the players that they bought in, other than what's his name from Salzburg, the forward, Adeyemi, I think. Fuck, I might have that wrong. I don't know a lot about them, but they've already done quite a lot of business already. So, no, me and Sudge have spoken about this a lot in terms of, I think Zaha's moment's gone. Probably better off staying and leaving as a bit of a legend at Palace. I don't see that. Rogue transfer of the summer. I could see it being someone Newcastle buy, like, and I'll just pluck a name out here, that Newcastle going for someone like Riyad Mahrez or something. That I'd not even heard that as a link, but something like that, where Newcastle go and possibly go and take a player from one of the already current big boys, who's perhaps on the fringes. I don't know. It's so much more difficult for clubs in the transfer market now, because the top players cost so much money, and you've still got to regulate yourselves against this FFP stuff. Look at Everton and the issues they've had with salary and the turnover of players they've had over the last number of years, now trying to balance it. So, and that's why I think Zaha's missed his moment, because Palace aren't just going to go, you've been great for us, we'll let you go for 25 million. Palace will still sit there and go, we want 50 million for a guy who's nearly 30, I think. There's a lot of clubs are going to look at that and go, there's no resale, not interested. Owen Wilson says, also thoughts on Forster as a sign-in, and where do you think Spurs will look next for their transfers? Do Spurs have any sellable assets that might get them a good fee this summer? Yeah, I'm happy with Forster as a sign-in. I tweeted this out the other day, that it's absolutely essential, basically, for every Premier League club to have a backup English goalkeeper, which is becoming a real problem for the national team. It's just a space. I think second and third choice goalkeepers should be English, or at least count as homegrown quota players in almost every Premier League squad, personally. Which is bad, because it means the clubs are trying to get around the quota. I mean, what they really should do is change it and say, in terms of the English quota, what would be better, as I said, one of your nominated 3 goalkeepers has got to be English, and 7 or 8 of your outfield players have got to come as homegrown or something. They actually need to split the rule up to stop this sort of thing happening. But then still make sure that we are still getting English clubs within English players within the clubs in the Premier League, rather than having 60 foreign goalkeepers would obviously be the opposite disaster. In terms of what Tottenham are targeting, I've spoken about it. Left-sided centre-back is a priority. Both the wing-back positions. Looks like particularly right more than left. A midfield player, another attacking player, wide player, and a backup for Kane. Tottenham, I'm pretty convinced, will make at least 6 signings this summer. Subject to how many people go out the door. So in terms of sellable assets, Tottenham need to cut their losses on Ndombele and see if they can get him out for sort of 20-25 million or so. They're not going to get all the money back for Lo Celso, but I think it's fair to say probably between those two players you're looking at 50 to 60 million or so. I don't think Conte is very high on Region. You're probably looking at about another 20-25 there or so that will interest someone. Bergwijn, similar amount of money. So, I mean, you put those 4 together or so and you're talking about 100 million or so. And that's where I thought Tottenham would spend over 100 million net anyway this summer without the 150 million injection. So I don't think it's impossible that Spurs spend in terms of turnover upwards of sort of 250 million this summer. I don't think that'll be the net, no way. But I think the outlay might be that sort of money. Might well be. Remember as well, a lot of transfers these days are obviously structured. So like I know Romero has technically been on loan, but he's a Tottenham player. I think Tottenham are just paying Atalanta like 8 million a year for 5 years. So they spread the cost out. In terms of Forster specifically, yeah, fine. I think Sam Johnson wanted, a deal was in place. Sam Johnson wanted assurances that he was going to get a certain amount of minutes and Tottenham wouldn't give it to him, so it looks like it's going to go somewhere else. That's my understanding, whereas Forster at his age, he's probably looking more for the salary for the final years of his career. I think he's probably quite suited towards, can we call it Conte ball, in terms of his dominance of the area, so you can defend a little bit deeper. Obviously from crosses and stuff, he'll come and claim he's an absolute giant and stuff. Not the best of his feet, not the quickest off his line, but a big keeper. Always seems to play well against Arsenal as well, ironically. So, yeah, we'll have Fraser Forster. It wouldn't be my top choice, but it was an absolute, probably up there with one of the biggest priorities, was had to get an English goalkeeper in. Colm Bugler says, how funny are all the memes, etc., going back and forth between the North and South teams, and are you looking to add to the chaos? No, listen, I'll just sit there quietly and just run the game of football tomorrow. Listen, everybody's taking it really well, I think. It got to a point a couple of weeks ago where I thought, this might get a bit needle here, because people are taking the game very, very seriously tomorrow. But there's been some good banter back and forth between the two teams. I think there's an understanding that everyone's going to take the piss out of each other, and it's okay. Do I intend to get involved? No, my meme game is not top level, so I'm only likely to mug myself off worse, to be honest. Obviously, if you wonder what I'm talking about, obviously talking about the charity game from members of the FPL community tomorrow, North versus South, raising money for Street Child United. Obviously, you can if you go to Game Week 39 FPL, I think it is. You can find the links. Obviously, we released a podcast on Tuesday with Benny Blanco, who's organised the event. You can find all the links to still down. And I think they put tickets back on sale today as well if you want to come. I don't think that's going to be for long, so get it done if you do want to come along tomorrow. But you can still donate to the charity as well and the day, and there is a fantasy football game via gaffer.io if you want to join in as well. Asil Salem says, man of the match prediction for tomorrow's Champions League final. I'm going with Mane. We had a chat this morning on our Patron pod about Vinicius versus Trent, and that possibly being pretty key to what happens tomorrow. So, I'm gonna say, let me say Thiago. If he's fit, we say Thiago. But if Madrid win, Vinicius might be the boy tomorrow night. Asil says, could we see Gareth Southgate manage a Premier League team in the near future? Yes, definitely. Definitely. I wouldn't be surprised if he's Tottenham's manager after Antonio Conte. Honestly. Yeah. I think he's shown he can play multiple formations. I think the reason I mentioned Tottenham as an example is coming in to replace Antonio Conte, you're going to have to change a lot in terms of style, many things, because if you just try and replicate that and the same thing, you're going to have something inferior, basically. So I could see, I mean, it depends when that happens, for example, but I'd think, what are we, World Cup now? I mean, if Conte, and I don't see it, but if Conte did stay till the summer of 2024, would a club like Tottenham potentially look at Southgate after those European Championships? I'd say it's a possibility. It's a possibility. I don't think Gareth has any intention of not managing England, and certainly the FA do not want to get rid of him at the moment. So I don't see that changing. But will Gareth Southgate manage a Premier League team in the future? Yes. In the near future, probably not. A lot of it's about timing, right? A lot of it's about time. If you said of the top 6 clubs at the moment, I'd say Tottenham would have most likely to have Gareth Southgate at one stage. But, you know, if say Conte goes next summer and it's just after a World Cup and then England have got Euros only a year away, timing's not right. If you can get sort of straight after the tournament, it's probably the right time. But of course, it depends what England do, right? If England go out the group stage of the World Cup, then suddenly, bang, he's under pressure and the situation changes. But I think, no, I'd be very surprised if Gareth Southgate wasn't England manager at Euro 2024, to be honest. So when you say near future, I guess the answer is no. FPL Lighthouse says, what are your predictions for the first manager to be sacked next season? I think with Everton's financial troubles, it could be Lampard. No, I don't think it'd be anywhere near that. There's a relationship. Lampard's been very clever here. Lampard's built up a relationship with the fans at that football club. So the fans are not going to hold him responsible in the first instance if the transfer business is bad and they're really struggling. So that's not to say Frank Lampard can't be sacked as Everton manager. Of course he can. But no, I would disagree with that. I think Hassan Hüttl is under real pressure. They've obviously changed ownership quite recently. And they had an upturn in sort of January, February and stuff. Since then, so they've obviously finished the season really badly. So I think Hassan Hüttl would possibly be under pressure. I also think that actually Jesse Marsch, if Leeds start really badly, they might look at it and ask if they've made a mistake. But I've said previously, I quite like Jesse Marsch. I think there's something that can be achieved there and done. Hassan Hüttl feels like the one that stands out. I think, I'm just trying to think, other clubs have been down that area this year. I don't see many reasons for change. I mean, Hassan Hüttl would be the... And I like Ralph as well. I like Ralph, but it's got to be something there. But their form's like teenage mood swings, mate. It's brilliant one day and it's awful the next. You don't really know what you're going to get from it. There's got to be an underlying reason why that seems to happen to them every season. They lose 9-0, they go and win 3-4 games in a row. And that happened the last 2 years. And they've had wild variances in form this year as well. So, yeah, I think Hassan Hüttl is probably under pressure starting next year. I think Lampard has played played a fan base is harsh, but I think you know what I mean. He's built up a relationship. He's been quite clever about it. Where if he just gets sacked, say they lose their first 4 or 5 games next season, I'm not sure the fans are going to be that supportive of it. They're going to go for the board anyway. Stian Bosdale says, how many times did you check the amount for the holiday fund before it kicked in that it was the actual figure? Stian, it's not a Patron pod, so I'm not going to talk about this in a lot of detail, but what I will say, some of you might have thought something's a little bit awry from some of my tweets. Basically, we're not doing any content in June. That means, obviously, our patrons not getting charged for the month. They have organised by Tom FPL Face Off, who's been the, I'd say, antagonist, the leader of the idiots, had organised a fund for me and my family for a holiday. The honest answer to your question, Steve, I'm not going to reveal what that total is here, but thank you so much to all the patrons who obviously did donate. No, I didn't look twice at the figure. I saw the figure and accepted it because I know how mad you all are. I didn't doubt it. I saw it and was, oh, okay, but it also at the same time, I didn't doubt it because I know what you lot are like with your generosity and stuff, so thank you. Paul Kit says, hello James, thanks for the content. Question regarding Champions League final. Which team do you expect to win? Why? And do you think Liverpool Madrid of 2018 is worse, better, same than current teams? Liverpool are certainly way stronger than their 2018 version, way stronger. Madrid, I'm not. I think it's fair to say, but it doesn't mean that Madrid can't win tomorrow. We were talking this morning on that pod about, if Madrid win it, they will have beaten PSG, Chelsea, Man City, and Liverpool, who you could make a case for as being the 4 strongest teams in Europe at the moment, and you'd have to put your hands up and go, wow, that's incredible. And nobody even within Madrid expected Madrid to challenge for the Champions League this year. There was no expectation for it. So there's a slightly different vibe about Madrid to usual. I think they go into the game as underdogs. I think if Liverpool play to their maximum, I think Liverpool will win. But the nearer it's got, the more I thought Madrid have got a chance. But yes, I do think Liverpool will win. I think they'll have too much reality at the top end of the pitch, frankly, for Real Madrid. I think you can get at this Madrid and score goals. And that's where I think the game will be decided most. Ash said, thoughts on the new Champions League, Europa League, Europa Conference League from 2024. 36 teams in each, no drop down. Good for mid-table teams. It's awful, frankly. The one nice thing in it is the no drop down from Champions League to Europa. You go in the competition, you either go through or you go out. It's good, that's a positive. The fact that they've at least relented on this guaranteed position thing, where at least it goes to countries, feels a little bit fairer. And I think we've always been, I've spoken about this a lot, moving towards getting more English teams in the Champions League because of the power of the English clubs is absurd. You compare the finances at, say, a West Ham or an Aston Villa versus a Valencia, for example. I mean, they are miles away from each other now financially. Miles away. Whether rightly or wrongly, they're miles away. There's so much power with the English clubs now. In terms of the format, it's a bit of a shocker, isn't it? The reason the format has come about is because the big clubs want to play each other more. But they don't want the jeopardy of playing each other more, is the reality. So you've got a situation where you will have more high-profile, let's say, Bayern Munich versus Real Madrid clashes in the group stage of the Champions League, but they're also fucking irrelevant because those two teams are not getting eliminated when they would have to finish in the bottom 12 of what is effectively a 36-team league. So, no, it's not. It's more games for the sake of more money, isn't it? Is the reality. Is the group stage going to be more exciting? Don't see it. Because I don't see any jeopardy for... The biggest jeopardy for the biggest clubs is obviously whether they finish in that top 8 or not. But if they don't, fine, they've got to play an extra knockout game and they'll probably win that. So... Part of the deal with it, there's nothing wrong with the Champions League format as it is, the reality. Just the clubs want more money and they want more games and they want more guaranteed. They want more guaranteed, more games and want more guaranteed money. And this offers that, the minimum. How many games is it? 8 or 10 is it? I can't remember now. It gives them more guarantee of games anyway. I think you could have to win, I want to say 19 games possibly now if you took the long route of winning the Champions League. So there's more games, equals more money, equals more sponsorship. It's all about greed. It's all about greed. Who knows? Maybe it's something we'll grow to like, but I don't see it. I think it's at the end of the day, it's a cup competition, and it should be about jeopardy. And you can say, they're making it more like a league. And I know it's called the Champions League, but the Champions League is decided by knockout football. So no, most of us are not happy about it, but we also can't change it. Paul Kit says, how and when did you start supporting Spurs? I started Spurs from as long as I can remember. I was given no choice by my parents, predominantly obviously my father. He took me to my first game when I was about 10 months old. This is a true story. Been to every Tottenham home game except for games I couldn't attend because of COVID since I was 6. So very long time. How many years now? Actually, James, I'd rather not word it out. I 32 years now. Let's say I've been going to every game. Gary Reza says, afternoon mate, does wifey know that you plan to go to more away games this season? No. No, but it's let's see. Let's see what happens. Jim Pro 100 says, any celebration planned if you scored in game week 39? Well, there's no chance of that happening. I guess the most likely is it could go to a penalty shootout. Who knows? I might end up with a decisive penalty or something. Yeah, there were two obvious celebration candidates. There is the which I play a bit of five-a-side football, and we tend to play for an hour and no one comes on the pitch after us. And the end of the hour, we play like next goal wins, one more goal at the end. And there's a couple of weeks recently I've ended up getting the last goal, and I've done the Robbie Keane celebration afterwards, which you can imagine with my physique is quite amusing. Like, it takes me about 2 minutes to get the celebration done and another 5 minutes to get back up. So the Robbie Keane celebrations are possible. The other one, the ideal one, is the Cantona, isn't it? Just stand there and just turn around like you're the biggest don in the world. So yeah, the Cantona one maybe, but I won't be scoring tomorrow. David Dobson says, what do you think the chances are that someone gets sent off tomorrow other than Suj's plan, and do you think there is a possibility the game might kick off a bit? On a serious, I really hope it doesn't, right? I don't think people should be kicking 10 bells out of each other when they're playing a football match to raise charity for each other, but there is a lot of personalities, let's say, on both teams for that game tomorrow, and I don't doubt there probably will be a flashpoint at some point, but you know, let's hope it stays within the laws. Listen, we want a bit of intensity to it. That's absolutely fine. I don't want anybody to spoil their own day or the day of what's going on. So no, let's hope it stays 11 versus 11. I guess it also depends on the referee, right? None of us know anything about the referee. So, I mean, I've played Sunday League games where you could basically commit GBH and you wouldn't even get a yellow card. And there's some other where you might say something as simple as fuck off and a ref will book you. So no one knows what the referee's going to be like tomorrow, right? So I guess that will have an impact as well. Adam says, who will win a trophy sooner in your honest opinion, Harry Kane or Arsenal? Harry Kane makes his winning the World Cup in Qatar. Got out of that one, didn't I? Harendra says, height-wise, are Arsenal pursuing the right players in Tielemans and Jesus? Height-wise? What's wrong with their height? They're alright. I mean, both fucking taller than me, I can say that. Adam says, do you ever bet on football or do you stay away from the gambling? If you do, what's your biggest single win-loss on a bet? Very, very, very rarely. I haven't had a football bet all season, I don't think. I obviously worked in that industry for a very long time, so I've seen some of the damage and shit that can be done from that. Yes, I used to like a bet quite frequently at the time. Biggest bet was I backed Spain in 2010. 200 quid. 4-1 was the biggest. I think I backed them again in Euro 2012, but I only think I did about 100 quid and they were shorter. I think I backed them again in 2014. No, I didn't. I backed Brazil actually in 2014. Fucking numbnut. So that would be the biggest loss. I did 200 quid again on Brazil in 2014. Euros, I didn't even have a bet on the Euros last summer. Didn't even have a bet, which is ironic because those who were around at the start of the tournament remember who I was tipping up, and yeah, it was the team who won it. Static says, if you were Arsenal manager, I know. Which areas would you target for improvement transfer wise? They obviously have to get a centre forward in, which is not easy. It's not easy because the expectation is that Arsenal will get a centre forward in who will challenge for the Golden Boot, and the reality is most forwards get, sort of 13, 14. It's good. And there are less of them about. You only have to look at the returns of, you mentioned Jesus, or it'd be interesting to know what the aggregate returns are of the player who's played 9 for City, like the combination of whether it's been Bernardo, Sterling, Foden, Grealish, whomever's played there. Someone work this out for me and DM me. I'd be interested to know, and I'll tweet it out, or tweet it and tag me and I'll retweet it. I'd be interested to know what the goals and assists return is of Manchester City players who played centre forward for them. I think it would be really interesting, and I can't be bothered to do that research, so someone else can do it instead. But it's not easy to find a big centre forward. I think Arsenal need quality depth, but then they've got some players coming back like Saliba, Reece Nelson, who are probably going to add some depth to that next year for them. Midfield, because there's certainly a real drop off between Partey and Xhaka, and what's underneath. Like El Nenny's done alright, Lukonga's got potential and stuff, but what do Arsenal want? Arsenal want to get back in the Champions League, right? So they need to find the real balance, because obviously they've got Europa League football next year. They need to find the real balance of adding both quality and quantity. I think the smart play would be that the quantity comes from players rejoining from loan spells and go and buy the quality. That's probably what they need to do. A central striker has to be the priority. Sim De here says, best captain for game week 39. I am going to say what you already know, Sim, and I'll be captain. Peter from FPL.team. Simon Coulson says, hello and greetings from Finland. As a Finn, I would like to see Pukki stay in the Prem. Any team you could realistically see go for him? Yes. I could see him I could arguably see him at whoever wins the playoff final, actually. I think Bournemouth and Fulham probably in those areas probably sorted with Solanke and Mitrovic respectively, but they'll want cover. Pukki is definitely a Premier League level player. I was talking about it during the game on Sunday as well. Like, his movement off the ball is really clever. He makes really subtle off the ball movements. He's really good. He's lively as. He's just been playing for a very bad team this year. Southampton maybe, to throw a name out there. I like Teemu Pukki. Yes, he. To be honest, he shouldn't go and play in the Championship again. But if he's happy at Norwich, good luck to him. Gary Reza says, what's on your t-shirt today? This is going to be bad for the audio, but I'll show. This is the bear porn t-shirt. I won't go into more detail. Perlas Penn said, how many goals for Haaland next season? If the fixtures are good, would you consider KDB Haaland double up? How many goals for Haaland next year? 20. I don't think he'll go mad. I really don't think he'll go mad at all. I think eventually he will, but as I've said, and it's proven so many times with City players, it might take 2 years. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't own him game week 1, right? 'Cause he might score 3 or 4 on the opening day, for example. But I don't see him getting over 30 next year, to be honest. I think there will have to be some adaptation, whether that's from him as a player or whether it's from Manchester City and their manager in terms of stylistically. There is going to have to be some sort of adaptation. The game is very different. Think of how many goals you've seen of Haaland where he's running through one-on-one from like 40 yards and stuff. The fucking shit's not going to be happening when he's playing for Man City. So there's going to have to be some adaptation. For me, he's the best number 9 in the world at the moment. So eventually it will come. And I'm by no means suggesting it's a bad signing. Absolutely not. He's a world-class player, world-class potential in terms of the elevation of what he can be in terms of superstardom. And he's a great signing for City. I just think there probably will be a time needed of adaptation stylistically. That's all. So, no. In terms of the double up, where does that become affordable? I think once you want Salahs and Sons, and we see the prices of these premium defenders, and even factoring in, do you want to get a Jared Bowen if he's going to be 8 million rather than 6 million midfielder? Not easy. Not easy. So I think KDB will probably spend the majority of next season as a differential again, would be my instinct. Paul Kit says, free hit team for game week 39, North v South. Ideally get the 3 boys up front, Raptar, Nacho and Ed. Ideally, I think still play. I think in the midfield area, try and get the guys around Peter, FPL team, and Korf's price level. Go cheap at the back. Like, I think someone like Plonka, Aaron, I think he's very capable of getting like an attacking return tomorrow. Genuinely, I think he's 6.5. But to go with that attacking return, the game might finish 6-6, right? So what's he actually getting? 4 or 5 points or so? No different to any one of an attacking player getting a single assist, is it? So I think probably the premium defenders are probably avoidable, to be honest. AD Tour says, well done on a great content season. We game at 39 tomorrow. Which fantasy format would you score the most points in as a fantasy asset between Sky, FPL and Gaffer? Sky by miles, mate. That's all I'm going to say. Dylan Ferner Rose says, do you think City's dominance is harming or enhancing the Prem's reputation? City's dominance of what? Winning the title by 1 point again? It's a brilliant race, isn't it? So, The reality is, here's the difference. If City take their eye off the ball in the likes of Liverpool, possibly Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal will get their act sorted together. You look at all the top teams, put United, Newcastle in there as well. Even look at what Villa are doing in the transfer market. These teams are pushing to get better. All of them throughout the league are pushing each other to be better and stuff. So, like, what happens to City's dominance when Guardiola leaves? No one knows. And he might be there for another 5-6 years. I don't know. But it's not, the City aren't winning the title by 15-20 points and making it like a procession. Liverpool had them fucking backs up against the wall, worried this season. So I don't think anything happened this year. I mean, what would you have said? Like, if Liverpool win tomorrow, then effectively they were a couple of Ilkay Gundogan goals away from the Football Manager equivalent of completing football. So how much City dominance is there? How many Champions Leagues have City won? Okay, they've won, 4 out of 5 titles or so? But bar the first one and the COVID season one, they've been put under pressure and they've known it. Scribed by Josh says, yes, James, massive thanks for the hard work this season. Any shouts for right back who could potentially fit in Ten Hag style? Yep, got a great one for you, mate. Emerson Royal. Hakimi. The honest answer to that is I don't watch enough European football to give you a great answer for that, actually. I suspect it's probably someone out there. I tell you what, we'll throw a name in from the Premier League. Sorry to Villa fans here. Matty Cash might be the sort of one that would, stylistically, from the bits I know from Ajax, might work. But I don't think that's where United are looking, and I don't think Villa would have any intention of selling. Shamil Galani says, genuine score prediction for game week 39, no fence sitting. Alright, okay. 6-3 to the North. Adam says, who's your vote for most underrated player of the season? Cucurella for me. What a shrewd buy from Brighton. Great shout. Can't argue that. Eric Dyer. Honestly, put Eric Dyer in there. He's had an absolutely brilliant season for Tottenham. Eric Dyer's not had a single bad game all season. So I would like to throw Eric's name in there. I think Cucurella is a brilliant shout. I can't argue against that. I'd also throw Sonny's name in there. So I don't see his name being mentioned for Player of the Year anywhere or anything really. So it's only been the last couple of weeks people have talked about it. But yeah, I think Cucurella's very, very fair shout. I think Jared Bowen at West Ham, because there's been a lot of attention obviously on Declan Rice, rightly so this year. So I think Jared Bowen I think would be in most people's team of the season if you could kind of play Salah or Bowen centrally. If you could fit them both in, one centrally and one on the right, and play Son on the left, that would be the front three, wouldn't it? Neil Thompson this afternoon, good luck for game at 39 and enjoy your break. Thanks for all of the Planet FPL content and Patron content this season. You're very welcome, Neil. Right, I'm going to cover this off. It is currently on my screen 1:51. I did say I'd do 45 minutes, but fuck it. I will cut this off at 2 o'clock. Francis Logan says, brilliant streams and hopefully Celtic v Spurs in the draw. I'd love that, Francis. I would 100% go to Parkhead. Absolutely no doubt about it if we drew each other. Steve Greenworth says, with this United and Newcastle talk, perhaps a good question. Who finishes higher in 5 years? It might be the top two. Football goes in cycles and it changes. They might be first and second in 5 years. It's difficult to think at this moment in time that the answer to your question isn't Newcastle. Greg Frost says, hoping Sessegnon becomes first choice. That for Spurs, it's every possibility. I mean, Antonio likes him. Depends what we do in the market. But I think, yes, he probably has earned favouritism over Reguilon. He was really good the last 3 games, Sessegnon. Really good. And I know the way those games turned out, actually the Burnley game became quite difficult. Obviously, the Arsenal game became quite easy because of the red card and the score and stuff. Really good Ryan Sessegnon. Really impressed the last few weeks or so. He's got to get a run of... The thing is for him, he needs a run of 10, 15 games. He hasn't yet been able to do that since he joined the club. Where he stays free from injury and he really pushes on and kicks on. Steve Greenwell says, appreciate your work this year, James. You are the levelist. That's a word, right? Levelist. I mean, I'm hardly the expert of the Oxford Dictionary, mate. Levelist of heads among the FPL community. Can't thank you enough for that. I can only try and be honest, Steve. That's all I can try and do, mate. But thank you. Sam Robertson says, have you watched many MLS matches? I can't remember the last MLS game I watched. Very occasionally, it might be late at night and I'll channel up and it kind of sits on the background for me. But no, I had more of an eye on it when like Robbie Keane was at LA Galaxy and obviously Bex was out. I had more of an eye of it back in that era than now. Greg Frost says, I don't think Chelsea get top 4 next season. I'm going 5th. Your top 7 prediction? The top 7 prediction for next season, honestly, would be the same order that they finished in this season, with Newcastle 7th. Prabesh Sharma says, okay, no big deal. Why not set the record straight in the boxing ring, considering we fall in similar-ish weight class? What is that? Andy Max says, look forward to meeting you tomorrow, James, at Game Week 39. Likewise, mate. So finalising my Gaffer team. Top 3 picks from the South team, please. The top 3 picks are, I think, are pretty straightforward. Is Peter, FPL team, and Raptor and Nacho. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, Peter's the guy. James Drury's absolutely great. I just think he's a little bit overpriced. I think that's all. Because I think Peter's probably more, and I think James would say this himself, Peter's probably likely to outscore him, I think. So it would be Peter and the 2 front boys. But I don't know if Raptor's going to play. Obviously, hope that he does. But he might not. He reckons he's going to go out on the pitch and he'll know once he starts running around and stuff. We obviously hope he plays because he's very good. Matthew McHale says, thoughts on how Erling Haaland will fit in and change City? Can see KDB and Foden benefit in a big way. It's a great question, Matthew. Thank you, but I feel like I've already covered Haaland quite a bit, so I'm going to skip that, but thank you. Liam Evans says, what do you think of Villa's early transfers? Yeah, look, I mean, getting business done. I don't know huge amounts about Kamara and Canos, the 2 players that they bought, in all honesty, so I'm not going to bullshit you. But I'm impressed with Villa's intent, both this summer and last summer, to get their business done good. That's great for the manager in terms of pre-season and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, to go back to my point, clubs like Villa are trying to push. It's not trying to push really hard. And to keep breaking through it's really difficult. Villa could improve their team by 3-4 players or so, look much better in 12 months. They might finish in the same league position. It's the reality of where this league is going. Garlic25 said, no question, just want to say thank you for your help this year. Got my highest ever finish of 5,001 and won my mini league, which got me £450. I owe it to you, Black Box and FPL Experiment. And I'm sure the guys from those pods would be very pleased to hear that. Jack, you press the buttons, mate, not us. Congratulate yourself, pal. Well done. Chris Wilshire says, thanks, James and Sid, for being awesome. Another great season. Thank you. Adam says, what sort of work did you do with the football betting, mate? Interested to hear if you don't mind sharing. And what was your experience like? You've talked about this quite a bit in the past, so keep it brief. But I worked for a high street bookmaker. I ran a number of different shops for them in a certain area. My experience was dreadful. I would recommend the role as a good start up to get managerial experience and work in a customer service environment for anyone who wants to do that sort of thing. If you want it as a long-term career prospects, I wouldn't go anywhere near it. I don't know if that's changed in the years since I left, but yeah, no regrets. The last thing they told me when I left is you'll be back. No, I fucking won't. Jonathan says, Liverpool fan, but have some good football memories from Spurs in the 90s, from Gaza to Klinsmann to Gross. Just shout out Paul Gascoigne. It's his birthday today. Happy birthday, Gaza. I know you listen. What's your favourite 90s Spurs memory? Cheers, mate. Bricking it over this Champions League final just quietly. I wish you luck, Jonathan. Well, winning the cup in 91, obviously. So beating Arsenal in the semi-final and Forest in the final. That by by miles. I was at both semis. Both games at Wembley. Sam Robertson said, had an idea when you and Suj were talking about the likelihood that Declan Rice stays at West Ham. Straight swap Lukaku for Rice. I do not see Lukaku want to go to West Ham. I would see Lukaku wanting to go to a team that's going to challenge for a title. That's not meant disrespectfully in any way. I just do not see that as a swap at all. Billy Anderson says, how much will Liverpool buy Kane for? Oh my God, Kane appears on Jimmy Fallon. Oh my God, next morning, Kane's being linked with transfers. That, yeah, listen, it's all good. It's all good. Monstrous, mate. He's not going. Rayendra Pasal says, St. James, big fan of Planet FPL, like your style of talk and attitude, makes the stream enjoyable, thank you. And last one, can I sneak another comment in? Yes you can, this will be the last one. Watching your pods allowed me to gain number 3 rank in my country and win my mini league. Many congratulations. Me and Suj will be back Monday and Tuesday. I don't quite know what we're going to do yet on Monday, Tuesday for you guys, but there will be 2 more pods for you. We'll probably do a bit of an FPL review. We'll talk about what happens with the games this Saturday and stuff. We'll open up a large Q&A on those 2 podcasts, Monday, Tuesday. Come back, join us. The Patron guys know what they're getting Monday, Tuesday as well. And then obviously from after Tuesday, we are taking a break for all of June off. We will resume our full content on Monday, July 4th, but we still got a little bit more for you before the season finishes. To Liverpool, Real Madrid, Forest, Huddersfield fans, very best of luck for your big games this weekend. I wish you well. And for anybody coming to North v South tomorrow in Birmingham, 2 o'clock kickoff, come and say hello if you can before the game or in the pub afterwards. Don't be shy, please come and say hello. I love meeting guys from the community and stuff, so come and say hello. Looking forward to meeting many of you tomorrow. And as I said, obviously, if you can offer donations, be very appreciated. But that's all for now, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. And for the benefit of those listening on the audio, cue music, please, man child.